Technical.
we go.
Tim, there you are. Yay. I see Tim. Hello. There he is. Nobody touch anything.
That was unbelievable.
Tim, you're perfect.
Unbelievable.
You're amazing.
Hey, great. You're perfect.
I'm crazy
All
mad
right, we're
love
going
for
to dance.
you. Well, I told you. Wait a second.
Got
Here
it
you
going.
go. Here we go. Ready?
Oh, wait, you are sharing mic and camera too.
Don't touch it. You're good, Tim. You're good.
Okay, I'm not touching anything. Okay, Gina, you seem to be working on something. Can everybody see me?
Yeah, we see you.
Tim, we can see you. I was just giving you your music intro because we know that you are the.
We don't hear music, Gina.
We don't need music.
Yeah.
I hear music in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
He is the risk master.
Okay,
Bitcoin
good.
shuffle.
All
Yeah,
right,
we got
baby.
a lot of good songs
It's
going
all
on.
you. Tell him to go. I'm gonna come off my share. You're good, Tim.
Okay.
And
Hey, very exciting to be here. I've always loved Singularity University. They were somewhat of an inspiration to Draper University. I love the concept of exponential growth and how things can move in amazing different ways. And I love the idea that science can, there's kind of no end to it. And I guess the singularity is where the brain and the computer cross. But I think there's so many other things out there that you can do with the world. And I think we're coming into one of the biggest transformational times in the history of the world. And it's something, first, we've had, we all kind of lived in our little fiefdoms for many, many, many centuries. And then all of a sudden we got interconnected through first telephones, and then eventually we got interconnected through the internet. And the internet made it free for all of us to communicate throughout the world. And that was a big, huge breakthrough. And the internet changed communications, information, gaming, entertainment, media, hotels, taxis, everything. But since the internet, that was one major transformational technology. Since then, we've had two, and they seem to be accelerating in how quickly we get a transformational technology. The two I'm thinking of are Bitcoin blockchain smart contracts as one that's transforming the way we do commerce, the way we bank, the way we do finance, all of that. And eventually how we title real estate and how we work our insurance programs and how medical insurance is paid and how governance works and all that. And now we got AI, and it's completely transforming the way we educate each other and how we spread the knowledge of the world. And so we've kind of taken this amazing leap. I was working in AI way back in the dark ages when I was at Stanford. We were working on what we called expert systems, and that was all rules-based. But now AI is data-based, and it's all tied to, it's all built on a neural network. And that's so exciting because it's the difference between a rules-based economy and a freedom economy. The rules-based economy is limited in all the rules that are created in the system, and that was in AI. That was enough to create a checkers champion. But the data-based technology in AI, the neural network, is enough to create a Go champion. And the reason is that it's taking on all of the data of all the people and everything they're doing. And all that data is going to be incredibly valuable to all of us. Now, the internet sort of grabbed the global knowledge and they put it all into a search engine. But now with ChatGPT, you can just ask any random question that you want, and you get a very clear, thorough explanation in perfect English. It's sort of the equivalent of going from when we were writing on pen and paper and going over and over and copying the Bible over and over and over with a quill to when some genius created the printing press. So I am really excited about AI and what it's going to do. And I brought it up to a professor at Berkeley in astrophysics, Alex Filippenko, and the two of us had a little conversation. He said, yeah, it seems to be really a point of contention in the faculty lounge. And I said, well, that's great. And then I started to picture what was going on in the faculty lounge. Let's say there are 10 people there. 2 of them are saying, wow, our admissions department is doing such a good job. These essays are outstanding. And then 6 out of 10 people are saying, we got to ban this ChatGPT thing. You know, they're the Luddites. We can't change anything. I like the way my curriculum works. I like what I teach. I've been teaching ancient Greek for years. I know exactly how to do it. And all of a sudden, these 10 people have created this way to do ancient Greek really quickly and easily. And then 2 out of 10 professors are saying, wow, we've come to a point in the road where we can do something really extraordinary. And we can change the way education works. This is, suddenly we have access to all that knowledge in lots of different ways. I mean, there are hallucinations aside, but we have access to all that data, and that is so exciting. And I think that that we can now make our minds go to a new place. And so education by rote is not as necessary as education by art and creativity and curation and thoughtfulness and creativity. There is a new span of education that's going to take us to another realm. And so we got to kind of break the teachers unions who all want it to be the same and everybody has to be the same, because we've got to open this up to the market system that's free and trusts people and builds relationships and builds new ways of thinking. We had 2 very interesting people speak at something we call VCX, where we kind of train other venture capitalists. And one was Rob Kaplan, who's the head of the Fed. And he said, well, the US economy can only grow at 2% real and 2% can be inflation. And that's just the way it is, because that's the way we've always operated. And then a futurist came in from ARK Investment, and he said, we can grow at 8%. And what's the difference between the two? One is looking at the world as it is, with all the regulations that our government has piled onto businesses. And one is looking and saying, if you deregulated the place, if you created more freedom, if you trusted people, you could grow at 8%. China did that with Deng Xiaoping. Way back when they had Mao, and he was a control freak, and he destroyed the lives of 1 billion people, and he basically kept it all. Everybody was the same, and everybody had to do what Mao said. And then Deng Xiaoping came along, and he said, some of us will get rich first, but we need this free market. And all of a sudden there was a free market, and it grew like crazy. 8%, 9% a year. and it was all about trusting the people and setting them free. Now they have President Xi, who's kind of back to Mao. He's a control freak. He's a weak leader. You've got another good example in Korea. North Korea and South Korea were separated by the Korean War, and they drew a line between the two, and there were about 30 million people on each side, separated by this demilitarized zone. And nobody's really crossed that zone, barbed wire and electric fences and all that. And 70 years have gone by. And in the North, they took on socialism, communism. They took on this control freak leader economy where the leader tells everybody what to do, and everybody watches everybody else, and they're all telling each other that you can't do that, you can't do that. And then in the South, they said, okay, it's free market, it's a democracy, open borders, open free speech, open minds, and less of a fear economy. And what's happened in those 70 years? Well, the average South Korean now makes 460 times what the average North Korean makes. And the average South Korean is now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. The average South Korean female is taller than the average North Korean male. In North Korea, they're basically starving because the government is telling everybody what to do, and nobody can do anything, and they can't make a life. So freedom and trust are absolutely critical to a growing economy. And the more freedom you have and the more trust, the better. And people ask me why I was so excited about Bitcoin. I still am, because it creates the trust side of an economy. It keeps perfect records on a blockchain. You can do contracts, smart contracts, without any lawyer getting in the way. You can do all your accounting, your auditing, your bookkeeping without an accountant, an auditor, or a bookkeeper. You can pay your taxes. You can do everything in Bitcoin, and that has taken us, the globe, potentially to an anthropological leap forward. And I think AI is going to do the same thing. I think it's going to change education as we know it. I think governments are going to be able to use AI instead of their kind of slow and overworked bureaucracy. AI can do a lot of the things that the bureaucrats are doing now. I think AI is going to take over all our jobs. I mean, it's going to take over all our jobs. So we have to sort of think creatively and go to the next level. So if I'm a venture capitalist and AI does a better job of reading people, of determining market size, determining market proliferation, determining what a entrepreneur has the spirit that they need through some blood pressure thing or something or other. Then I've got to think of what's next, what's beyond that. How do I reinvent myself? And I think that's a lot of what the Singularity University does. I know it's a lot of what Draper University does. You've got to reinvent not just yourself, but what do people want? At Draper University, we do something kind of, we have an arc. And the arc starts with what's wrong with the world, or where is there a great opportunity? And then it goes to what am I going to do about it? Or what, how do I solve that problem? And then it's what am I going to do about it? And I do that with products and services that solve the problem, spread around the world. And then it's how do I make money for those products and services? Because if you're not making money, you're a part of the problem. You've got to make money so that you can spread your idea around the world. And then it's how do I distribute this around the world so that the world knows that I've solved this problem, or that I've created this opportunity and transformed this industry. And it's one of the most I mean, it's one of the most fundamental parts of capitalism is that creativity that gets something started and gets something going and changes an industry that's gotten lazy and bureaucratic. And people ask me, what do you mean lazy and bureaucratic? I say, which companies in the world or which monopolies in the world, oligopolies, are providing bad service at a high cost? And we, as customers, we have to use them. So what comes to mind? Insurance, banking, pharma, government, probably a bunch of several others. Well, as entrepreneurs, you can look at those industries and say, well, what can I do with new technology to go in industries?
Billy Draper, or two others.
And so how do I go in and transform those? And the way to do that is to take one of these new technologies, take the internet, take Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, take artificial intelligence, neural networks, even those monopolistic or oligopolistic industries. I think that's really where I would focus my energy if I were starting something now. When you come out of Singularity University, you'll have stars in your eyes. When you come out of Draper University, you think, okay, I have stars in my eyes and I need to create a business. And if you go through Boost, my son's accelerator, you realize you got to be the cockroach. And the cockroach just never dies. It's tough to start a business. It is hard work, and you've got to believe, and it's got to be in your heart and in your soul. And you've got to come out of it feeling like I'm going to do everything I can to move this thing forward. And if the money comes, the money comes. If it doesn't come, maybe I make a little pivot. All of our biggest successes started out as something else and pivoted. Or you just say, they're coming around and eventually they'll get here. Now, as an entrepreneur, if you succeed, that's fantastic. Of course, then they start taking shots at you. You see the press coming after Elon and coming after Bezos. And, you know, somehow you go from being a hero to being a villain when you get to be huge and successful. You know, in my mind, those people are major heroes. But if you get to be that big, the press feels like they have an obligation to take you down a notch. But so if you're super successful, you might get into that position. But what a wonderful position to have created a business that can have a toothbrush show up at my doorstep in 4 hours, or to have a car that runs without any gasoline. Those are amazing accomplishments. And I hope you can have an amazing accomplishment. But if you don't, just know as an entrepreneur, everything you do, you're moving the ball forward. You're moving progress forward. You're making some competitor compete and improve because you're there. And don't worry too much about coveting your ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but real true entrepreneurs are not. The true entrepreneurs are the ones who actually make them happen, make money in their business, create a product or service that solves a big problem or a consumer opportunity. great entrepreneurs figure out how to distribute their product widely. I always thought creating a product, everybody'd come to that product. And then I realized when I came up with viral marketing that really the key is to get big distribution, and then you can sell those customers more things. So think how you can like get 3 customers who become your sales force, and then they'll get 10 more, and then get those 10 customers become your sales force and spread very widely and thoroughly. I don't know how I can, I mean, I've been rolling for a long time. I don't know whether I'm here to ask, to get questions or anything else. But if there are any questions, figure out how to do me somehow. But in any case, I'll just keep rolling.
We can take questions in the chat, guys. If you want to, why don't you guys post your questions in the chat for Tim?
Okay, and if Gina, if you get the chat, that's great. I tried to get into the chat, and then it sent me to Facebook, and then it sent me to, and then Facebook said they're taking me offline because apparently there are too many Tim Drapers out there.
Oh my gosh, no worries. Tim, your wisdom is so great. I was sharing with this group about how much value they'll get when they come to Draper University if they're really ready to be game changers in this world. So post your questions in this chat, guys. Here you have Tim.
So there are a few other things. The reason I have that pledge that Gina brought up is, and you can look it up, I will promote freedom at all costs. I'll fail and fail again until I succeed. Explore the world with gusto and enthusiasm. Treat people well. You know, basically honor your word. Be trusting, trustworthy, that kind of thing. And setting people free. It's there for a lot of reasons. There's one that says short-term sacrifice for long-term success. It's there for a lot of reasons, but it's really there because you're about to go on that journey, that startup journey. And at some point, you're going to want to go, you're going to have a dilemma. And it might be, hey, I can grab this money now, but it's going to I'm going to sacrifice some future later. And then you go to the pledge and you go, no, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to redefine it, reinvent it, and maybe work with that customer in another way. And I think that going to the pledge is good. That is an interesting point too, that in a negotiation, when you come to a negotiation, you have this feeling when you go in that it's a zero-sum game. And that's sort of how Russia looks at the world, or the Russian leaders. The Russians are wonderful, but the Russian, like Putin, he thinks of it as a zero-sum game. So he has to take another country or whatever. And I think President Xi looks at it the same way. But leaders who trust people and set them free, they look at it as a win-win. And so when you go into a negotiation, look at it as a win-win. Figure out what they want and what you want. And it's not always tied to the price of the service or the cost of the product or you know how much stock you're giving up, or how it's often like, you know, this is going to work because you know, Gina's found a really interesting dance partner, and I want to go to that dance, and that may be more important to me than the price of the stock. Or it may be that you can throw in that it was something a little more serious. You're working with some corporate, and the corporate is saying, no, we have to have 20% of the company or whatever. And then you go and you say, well, why do you have to have 20% of the company? And then they say, well, that's because we have this rule. And then you find out, oh, okay, well then maybe we can adjust that based on starts at 20% and adjusts based on how we perform, or it adjusts, or hey, you're going to earn your 20% by selling through to all your customers and giving us all of their names. There are lots of ways to negotiate, and it's only limited by the people's creativity.
Tim, we have a question for you.
Okay.
I posted the pledge, which is, if you really read it, and I also posted a link to the Startup Hero Tim's book. These are the key elements that have created Tim's success and a success for so many entrepreneurs. If you really embody and think about what each one means, what Tim's talking about is, I will promote freedom at all costs. Think about what that really means. And if you really lived and breathed that. Here's the question for Tim from Sri Menon. Lots of interesting opportunities for AI, but dealing with engineering shortages. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Hi, Sri. You know, it's interesting. Whenever you have a new field, there's an engineering shortage. People have to learn what that is. And so you have to pay higher for those people. Or if you're an entrepreneur, the idea is just bring them in as partners. And then they're much more interested in doing something like that. There's always a shortage until there are too many. Now, it's really interesting to see that in ChatGPT, you can say, hey, write me a program of a random walk down a pier. And it writes you a program of a random walk down the pier, and it works. So all those people who built all that software over all those years are looking and saying, wow, ChatGPT can do that in 20 seconds. And it would have taken me about 30 minutes. And so I kind of have to reinvent myself. So all those engineers are going, I want to be an AI designer. And it's a new way of thinking, but actually, if you're a software designer, you can actually think in AI terms pretty easily. You have to start thinking a little bit more in probabilities. You have to think more in terms of how a neural network would work. How, for those of you who aren't really versed in the difference between an expert system and a neural network, here's my example. An expert system, you say, hey, robot, take this paperclip and move it over here. And the robot learns to move it over here and then move it back, move it over here, move it back. In a neural network, the robot looks at the papers and it tries 5 zillion different things. And then all of a sudden it realizes, oh, this is what you want to do. You want to open the paper clip and clip it onto this paper. One fun example, we used a neural network many years ago, 20 years ago. In one of our companies used a neural network, and they were doing it for 7-Eleven, the convenience store. And 7-Eleven gave them all their data. And the neural network just went on all the data. And what came out of that data was that beer and diapers. People bought beer with diapers. And so, like, I don't know, husband or wife was sent down to 7-Eleven to get diapers, and realizing that they were going to, be with a baby that night, they bought a 6-pack of beer. And so 7-Eleven learned something, and they said, so now to this day, the beer and the diapers are always put right next to each other in 7-Elevens. So you do get that. It's just, think of it as many iterations of things. So the cool thing about neural networks and ChatGPT is now you're going to apply it to robots, and the robot just won't be doing one thing over and over. It'll start getting smarter. I just saw a robot emoji. Thank you. What was the question, Gina?
Oh, here's another question. It's talking about pivoting. It says, hi, Tim, can you give some examples of successful startups pivoting? how different was the pivot? This person is going from Bitcoin to food. They want to help hunger and homelessness. So talk about
They
just
weren't that different. They weren't that different, but they were different. I'll give you a few examples. Well, Google was just a search engine, and they had no way of making money, and they were sucking down money, and they were almost out of business. And then they saw what happened in our company. We were a little angry about it. They saw we created paid search at GoTo, and Google said, "Oh, paid search," and they added paid search, and suddenly Google became worth billions and billions and billions, trillions now of dollars. Skype came to us as a shared Wi-Fi system, and they then became a long distance carrier. They decided to go after the long distance guys. Hotmail came to us as a company that was going to make easy websites for people, like maybe a Shopify kind of thing. And they said, well, we do have this other idea, which is free web-based email. And we didn't know, nobody knew how they were going to make money. In fact, we never really figured out how to make money. But that distribution channel turned out to be incredibly valuable when we I did that viral marketing thing. And even Tesla was an electric car. And the two pivots I'd say they had were, one, it was Martin Eberhard. He started the business, and it was about out of business. And Elon came in and said, look, I know just what I can do with this, but I'm going to run it. And here's an investment. And we were all over it. And we said, that's fantastic. And Elon took it and did some extraordinary things to create that business. He got a huge loan from the government, and he bought the Numi plant for 5 cents on the dollar, which was just amazing. And then he started with another body, it was a Lotus body and a Tesla drivetrain. And then he realized, hey, we can reinvent the entire car, because the Lotus body is not really working for us. So yeah, a pivot from Bitcoin to food, I would be careful about being trendy. I would be careful. If you're an entrepreneur, you are creating the wave. You are building the mountain. You are putting the castle together one brick at a time. You're not looking for the hot thing and jumping on board. Although the best salespeople are the ones who look for the hot thing and they jump on board just as it's starting to hit big. So make sure that you're creating your own trend, which may mean that people around you are going to think you're a little bit nutty, because the best businesses that we backed, like 8 out of 10 of the partners were saying, this is crazy, why are we doing this? And it was usually 2 out of 10. If it was 1 out of 10, maybe it was crazy. But if it was 2 out of 10, there's something there. And so it's kind of as being an entrepreneur has to come from your heart, and you have to know in your heart that the world has to come your way eventually, but that you have to do a lot to get there. And it's a long, long slog. You have to do a lot, and then the world comes to your door. So yeah, there were lots of interesting pivots. Any other questions, Gina?
Yes, I got a couple here. Okay, those of you trying to pitch Tim, we're going to pause on those right now, but we're going to, here's this one from Valentine.
Okay, I can help them.
We'll get there.
If it's a full deck and a full business plan, and you have thought it through and you put your team together, you're getting going, then send something to me, tim@draper.vc. If it's an idea, go work the idea. build it with other people, find other people, tell everybody you know about it, start putting that business plan together, start thinking about it, test customers, see if any customers would buy what it is you're going to be selling, and then come to us. But don't send me, don't say, hey, I've been thinking about these 6 ideas. Which one do you think is the best? I don't want to hear that. I want to see a business plan. Anyway, tim@draper.vc. Okay, Gina, what's the question?
In light of from Valentina Calderon, in light of the rapid technological advancements we're witnessing today, what nascent industry or tech do you foresee as the next big wave, and what would be its most profound impact on society?
I actually still think that Bitcoin, the blockchain, and smart contracts are really going to transform society. That kind of frictionless society can grow at a much faster rate than one that goes through a banking government duopoly and has all the lawyers putting their 2 cents into every contract. And there is so much friction in business today that would go away, and we would be able to put the entrepreneur right together. There they are, right together with their customer, and there will be very little friction keeping them apart. And I think that that's Bitcoin, blockchain, and smart contracts. I also think the sky's the limit. No, sorry. There is no limit, because we're in space now. So the sky's never the limit. You get to go into space, and all sorts of things are happening in space. And I think that's a magical place. We're gonna explore. We're gonna find so many interesting things happening in space. That's going to be amazing. And then I think these neural networks are going to really transform the world in a lot of different ways. We're going to get closer to the feeling of come up with an idea and it happens. So like from your brain to a 3D printer, from your brain to a direct connection from your brain to the world, whatever. I think those are going to be really interesting. The brain-computer interfaces, the contact lenses that do VR. There are going to be all sorts of really interesting things that happen out there. And you've got to be thinking 15 years ahead, or you don't have an entrepreneurial tech business. I mean, you got to think deep tech, because deep tech gets shallow very quickly.
Perfect. What is from Chris Welch? Tim, what is the next stage or transformation needed for smart contracts to become widespread? The next stage?
I think smart contracts have to become more complex. Right now, a smart contract's just a bet. It's just one little bet. It's like, I bet you the Warriors are going to beat the Lakers or whatever. But a smart contract should be more like you build a deal between an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist, all in software. You build a deal between an entrepreneur and a customer, all in software. And that the money flows automatically from one person's wallet to another, from the corporate wallet to the supplier, from the customer wallet to the business, the startup business. That flow will happen. That's going to completely transform the entertainment business. And I'm sure they're going to resist this just the way they resisted file sharing. But the accounting, I mean, you got to be a genius to figure out the accounting systems that they have in Hollywood. And they have basically taken advantage of those. And I think artists and the assistant to the assistant of the lighting director have not gotten the amount of money they were supposed to get from the Star Wars movie or from whatever. And all of that would happen perfectly right on the blockchain, all dropped into Bitcoin wallets through a smart contract. So there's no reason. And Hollywood probably be the first one to disintermediate here. And that is going to be exciting. And it looks like I am now out of time.
All right.
So that was fun. Gina, Greg, thanks
Thank
for
you.
putting this together.
Thank you so
And I'm
much, Tim.
glad. I mean,
You
it took
rock.
like 30
You are
minutes to
just,
run,
you
but I'm
totally
happy.
rock. Here is, yeah, you just rock, everyone.
All
you
right.
have
Dance,
email.
dance like an alien.
Dance. That's exactly right. Well, here we go. Let me just play this here for you really quick. Here you go. Wait a minute. Hold it. We've got Tim dancing here. Oh, wait a minute here.
Are you
There
playing
you go.
music?
Well, we have a choice of you dancing or playing music. The tech hasn't quite gotten here yet.
Oh,
Whoops.
it's one or the other. Okay, I'll get off. You guys can play music.
There we
Everybody
go.
dance, and I hope it shows in the boxing ring there.
There you are. There you're dancing right there, Tim.
Oh,
In the screen. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. And thank you, Tim. You rock. We will see
bye,
you all.
Gina. Thanks,
I'll see
Greg.
you at
Thank you.
DU in November, where we'll change the world
All
with our
right.
next group of game changer entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, darling. I will see you soon. All right, Greg, back to you.
Thank you, Gina. I really, really appreciate that. I was worried about the tech issues there.